Hey Keaton, we are live. Thank you for joining me, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Trev.
Absolutely. It's good to catch up. Um, so, thank you for coming on. So, I know you wanted to come on today, and we didn't have anything set in stone to talk about. Just for anybody listening, Keaton and I go back a long ways, back to 2013, and we've always just had really dynamic conversations. I feel like we can talk about anything. So I just thought Keaton would be an awesome person to have on, and we both have kind of interests that are all over the board. So we're just going to kind of jump into it and talk about some random stuff. And thanks for listening. So the first place I wanted to start, Keaton, was we met at Bricks and Stone, and I worked in the restaurant industry for a lot of my life, starting in like 2005 or six, and just ended a couple of years ago. So I don't know, maybe like 10 or 12 years, and I think that you're around that exact same amount of time. So yeah, I just thought we could talk a little bit about our days back in the restaurant, and I know you went on to become a GM and you ran like a huge operation on Husker game days where they were making six figures in one day. And so I know you probably have some cool stories. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say the stuff's it's crazy. It's wild. Um, yeah, R.I.P. Bricks and Stone. That was the place. There were so many so many memories. I The one that I think of most is we were at the server station waiting for drinks from I think AJ was making them, and we'd been giving each other we've been giving each other a hard time kind of already. This is after we had become maybe work friends, but not friends outside. It was still kind of outside of work. It was still but in that kind of like middle ground. But you were standing there, and for whatever reason, I took an orange and just chucked it at you, and the orange slice hit you right in the face, and you were so pissed. And it
Oh my
was
god.
so hilarious. You had like little orange pulp stuck to your cheek, and I was like, "Hey, before you go to your table, let me get that off here. Get away from me!" And you were
Oh
all
yeah.
mad.
Yeah, dude, I used to get so mad about the stupidest stuff. Um, what I remember about Bricks and Stone, I mean, that place really changed my life. And I worked a lot of places that have like a deep meaning to me, like Spaghetti Works and Iguanas were huge for me. But Bricks and Stone was kind of like a third chapter that, or like I guess a trilogy or like the third installment in my restaurant industry that really had the biggest impact for me because I met you and I met Maxwell, and you guys today are my closest friends. I don't have very many friends, and so for you guys to have come into my life when I was 26 at the time, and so it's made a really lasting impact on me. And obviously, like that was during the time when I had just stopped drinking, and so that was huge for me. And you guys were 21 at the point in your life where you were excited to go out and drink. And so for you guys to be my friend, even though I wasn't drinking, meant a lot to me. And you probably had no idea all the stuff I was going through at the time, but I mean, the weirdness about the Kay, who I don't want to say she's weird, but just like her style of running a business and me coming in and then the shenanigans that we had there. Um, I remember AJ, who you mentioned, like he took bartending super seriously. And I love you, AJ, if you end up listening to this, but he did take it pretty seriously. And like Maxwell and you and I would just like start making up random drinks that weren't on the menu and selling them to
And
customers. He gets
mango
so mad.
mojito, and he'd be like, "We
Yeah.
don't have mango."
And remember Huckleberry? We would say, "Oh, we got a Huckleberry mojito," and there's no Huckleberry, so you just have to make it up.
Oh, I forgot about those. That was so good. He would get so mad over that. Uh, d- there, throwing, taking the like cellophane wrap for like the linens and balling it up and just chucking at each other across the restaurant as everyone's rolling silverware, which we never did because we're better than that, to roll silverware. But
Well, I just
lots of
wasn't very good at doing. I didn't like doing side work. I mean, I was just horrible at.
you weren't very good at doing it, or you just didn't want to do it. I
I
think those are
didn't
two
want to do
very
it.
different things.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it at all. I tried. I would do anything to get out of it.
Uh, yeah, Bricks and Son. That was well. Let's circle back. So you I mentioned that you were old, which still checks out, but
Yep.
you had just quit drinking, and Max and I were both like 21 and ready to just ruin our lives with alcohol. And we were like, perfect. We've got a DD all the time. He's the best. And so go out and somehow I would wake up in my bed, and it would be because Trev Trickle, my main man, dropped me off at home and got me McDonald's on the way, which I didn't eat, and half the time probably forgot about or left in your car, which you then I don't know what you did with it. Probably threw it away. Maybe you ate it. But yeah, those were yeah. It's crazy the camaraderie and like the family that gets built within the restaurant industry, or like that kind of impact that it can have. And as you mentioned, you've worked at other places like Iguanas and Spags. I'm sure you probably have similar experiences with that also. I mean, that's how you and Alex met, correct?
Yeah, we
Was
met
that
at Spaghetti Works, and I actually worked at Spaghetti Works like three different times. Like I started there in 2006. When I came to college, I joined a fraternity, lived on campus, but I didn't own a car. And this had nothing to do with drinking or DUIs or anything. Um, it was just the fact that I just couldn't afford one. And I think it kind of broke down before I left because I had one in high school. But I was able to walk to Spaghetti Works and walk to class and lived right there in the fraternity. And so that was when I started. Ended up going to Iguanas, kind of left Spaghetti Works, came back, had a whole second history there, met a whole big group of people, ended up working at Gallup. Then I kind of just like didn't really need to work at Spaghetti Works, so slowly kind of phased it out again. Then ended up leaving Gallup and coming back to Spaghetti Works a third time, and then that was when Alex worked there. And
so it
Alex is my
was
wife, so
yeah, it was meant to be. Destiny. Spaghetti Works has I don't know if Spaghetti
it
Works are
was
even still around
Spaghetti
anymore, but
Works was it was just horrible money. Like it was horrible money. Like like a Friday night, if you had the closing section, the best section, you make like $100. And that was always what it was. It was just $100. But the thing is, I became like the general manager during most of the time I worked there was a guy that and he's a cool guy. Don't mean to speak badly about him, but he's like probably 40s or 50s. He had three or four guy roommates, single, just like was a chill
so living the
guy.
dream,
Yeah,
living the
living the
dream.
dream basically. And basically like he just became my friend. Like we were just really cool. So I would just text him and be like, "Hey, I need a job." And I got, something happened, I need a job, and so he would just let me come back all the time.
Yeah, it's a win-win. It's like it's there when you need it, take off when you don't, and yeah, it's no, I've had that similar experience with Longwells, which you've actually worked probably 10 shifts at um, randomly and sporadically, but that was the bar restaurant. Really never did a ton of food compared to the bar, but that was the place that I managed, and like Husker game days are just nuts there. Like you mentioned it kind of talking, but like six figures is like just doing that all in a day and having all of it be like maybe $1,000 of it being food that were like hot dogs that we're selling for like $5 or whatever. But yeah, it's wild, and man, I could go on and on forever about stories at Longwall. So I won't into some of the experiences stuff there, but um, yeah, it's nice. I still do stuff like part time there. It's like kind of like I was there, I dipped out, came back. I'm like, hey, and it's like just mutually beneficial to pick up a shift here or there for both parties, and um, it. I no, I like it because it gets me out of the house and keeps me active from doing something other than just binge watching whatever whatever on Netflix or Hulu or you know insert streaming service. So
Yeah. Um what I like about the Longwells or the Bricks and Stone part of Lincoln, Nebraska is when, especially Bricks and Stone, like the Pinnacle Bank Arena kind of had just been built. And so shifts didn't even start until like 6, for which is when I would show up. I mean, shifts I think started around 4, but like I would show up at 6 and the concert maybe is at 7 or 7:30, and so people just like are like the place is dead, completely dead, and then totally full at like 6:15, and everybody just wants to eat real quick and then go to the concert. And if you think about that, like the sections weren't that big. They were only 4 to 6 tables, but the kitchen gets the whole restaurant coming in at once, so they cannot like compete. And then we just have to apologize, and it's just and then everybody wants to leave at the same time.
Dude, people are so stupid. It's like, okay, show starts at 7. We're gonna get to the restaurant at 6:30, and we're gonna expect to get in, get out, eat within 30 minutes. And it's like you can hardly do fast food in that amount of time if you go inside and like hitting the drive-through. And even the drive-through might be a bit questionable at times, but it's just like, and then the expect the expectations that people have, they're so stupid. I hate people. Working in the service industry has made me have this disdain for just the human race because it's just everyone is so impatient with that. But not yeah, same thing with like everywhere down in that like mile radius of the football stadium or Pinnacle Bank Arena, which are all like that's Lincoln's entire like bar scene is within like a 2 mile radius of those two places, and that's it. There's nothing else. I mean, there's random bars here and there, but yeah, that's. I remember. I think it was like I'd only been serving for like 3 months at Bricks and Stone, and which was my first serving gig, and I had what was that drink that we had? It was like the more boozy Long Island. You could only have like two of them. Um,
Oh yeah, I don't remember what it was called, but I
Bad
forgot about
Attitude,
that.
I think maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it came in like a 32-ounce mug or something, didn't
Yeah,
it?
and it had
Wasn't
like
it
the entire
huge?
bottle. It had like all like the entire bottle of each type of liquor. It was like vodka, gin, rum, like
Yeah.
tequila, triple sec, peach, schnapps. Like it was literally like everything, and it was like the entire bottle of everything. I mean, you'd have your 32-ounce mug, and it would be with no ice, which is a huge filler. It would be like halfway full. But I had a table. I had like it was I think it was like maybe like Shania Twain, maybe it was Cher, but I had a bunch of ladies who were probably like 45 to 60 range. And they were just irate that their food was taking, and their food wasn't even taking that long, but they were irate that their food was taking longer than 20 minutes. I'm like, well, you ordered a well done steak. So um,
Oh yeah. Well,
reevaluate your life first off, because who eats steaks well done? But who goes to a restaurant and expects a well done steak on during the busiest times to come out in like 25 minutes? Like, that's just stupid on you. But I just kept giving them and just shoving these drinks down. I was like, here you go, here you go. And they're like, this says it has a limit of two. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of just like we put that on there as like a disclaimer,
yeah.
but we can just kind of gauge it. They were
This is
probably
Bricks and
like,
Stone, so it's really whatever I say goes.
yeah, I make the rules. But
The
they
owner
were,
is currently at the bar having large glasses of wine, so it's okay.
yeah, and they, by the time their food came out, they were feeling no pain. I probably did overserve them. That's not an admission of guilt, but I probably did overserve them just a little bit. But I'm sure they had a great night at the concert if they made it to the concert. I don't think they ate like hardly any of their food, and they paid their bill. They tipped me fat, and I was like, all right. Went from being like angry, pissed off, probably just hungry. Um, hangry, because people suck when they get hangry. It's like the entire premise of the Snickers commercials. But like, yeah, they went from being just such Debbie Downers to being just like carefree and happy-go-lucky. It was wonderful. Um, but yeah, people are stupid. I'm gonna go to a restaurant 20 minutes before the show starts and get my food. I hate people. They're so dumb. Sorry, a
No,
little rant
no.
there. But
Yeah.
um, I was going to say at Longwell's, I think the craziest story I've ever
Well,
had. Or go ahead.
can you kind of talk a little bit about Longwell's? Like, just tell people. how many registers there are, how many like people can be like what is I think there's 76 beers on tap, like so give people an idea of what this place is like.
Yeah, yeah. So Longwell's is super. So it's like their like slogan or motto is like craft beer meets sports bar. So super draft beer heavy. They have a keg room that is probably like 20 feet by 20 feet. It's a square room. It's a pretty big area for like a keg cooler. But there are two bars there that have, between the two bars are over 250 taps. So a shit ton of beer. And it's right across the street from the arena. So it gets stupid busy during like concerts that are happening over there, like Husker football game days, because that's the hot spot to be is down in that area. But and then that's like the craft beer aspect, right? All the taps and all the different beers. But then like the sports bar aspect is they have a wall that is a TV. It's not like a bunch of like 65-inch TVs that are kind of put up together. It's like a 40-foot LED like screen like you would see at like a football stadium, like the one of those TVs, and then they break it down into three separate screens, uh, which is great for watching if for those sports fans or whatever you want to watch. We put the royal wedding on there once or whenever that happened, however long ago, with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at 6 a.m., which was a delightful shift because who wants to watch the royal wedding at 6 a.m. and drink beer? Apparently, a decent amount of
Apparently
people
people
because it
do.
was it was busy. I think I got my shit rocked. I think I did like 5 grand in sales just by myself from like 5 a.m. is when we opened our doors, and then we like closed at like 9 a.m. and I did like 5 grand in sales, which is a good chunk for one person.
Oh yeah, I mean that's really good.
But yeah, so it's got two different bars. They call them South Bar and West Bar. And both of the bars have on the other side, they open up into like a courtyard of beer, like a, or courtyard. A courtyard that has like a beer window that you can sell out of and drink out in the courtyard. And so the windows get really busy in the courtyard, which, I think the max, according to the fire marshal, the occupancy is like 2,500, but it exceeds that for sure. But then on the inside, they have a capacity of like 300 people, and the bars are like lines constantly of like four people deep on those busy days. Like you can't get out of like not you can't not be doing anything because it's just there's no time.
Well, and I'd
Um,
say on the inside, you're right, it's four people deep. On the outside, like in that courtyard, the line is like never ending.
oh yeah, it's like 20. It's like a constant. Like if it gets below 20 people, are like, hey, we're making a dent, and then it's just nope, back up to 50 or however many people that are
Yeah,
just standing there
and
waiting for a Bud
it's
Light.
it's the only place I've ever worked where there's like each window that opens up to the courtyard has two registers and there's two bartenders per register. One of them just stands there and takes the order and takes the money, and the other one makes the drinks, and the line's still never ending.
Yeah, it's like super efficient in that aspect. I will say that like it's as far as it's one of the fastest places to get drinks because you can go and pay, and by the time you get done, your card gets done authorizing your beer or your cocktails in front of you. So it's just like
Yeah.
boom, boom. It's very assembly line. So, but yeah, it's just nuts with the bars on the inside, and like on those busy days, the larger bar, South Bar, has like 12 to 14 bartenders behind it. So it's
Yeah.
not like
I
it's
mean,
just like
unreal.
understaffed busy. It's just like you can't keep up. But so, but with that, on those busy days, there are a lot of people who are having a good time and maybe too good of a time, but some degenerates. But I remember one night, it was like a 2:30 kickoff for a Husker football game, which are
That's the
the
best
ones that,
time. That's the busiest.
yeah, it's like you're busy before, you're busy after, but it's also early enough in the day that people think that they can start drinking at like 9 a.m. and then go into 2 a.m. And you can't. It's just, you can't.
No.
Um,
Yeah, you need a nap.
but I walked back into the kitchen to go, I don't know, go do something. And I walked back there, and there's this guy, this rando, leaning up on like the I beam in the back of the kitchen. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? And then I look over, and our mop bucket is right there. And this girl that he was with has her pants down around her ankles and she's dropping a deuce in the mop bucket.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
god.
I don't even have word. Like, just get the fuck out. Like, you can't go. I'm like, I don't
Oh
now.
my god.
This is my problem. I have to clean this. I have to go fishing for the brown log in the mop bucket, which is not enjoyable for anyone. And they're just like, like they're incoherently like blabbering about whatever, and they're like, the bathroom line is too long, and I was like, that's not my problem. And I don't know how they got in, but that is that is my probably the wildest story or the wildest experience that I've had at Longwell's is just walking back into the kitchen and just dude like basically passed out leaning up against the support beam, and then this girl, I don't know if girlfriend, wife, whomever, sister, someone like that, this girl that he is with is just doing her business in the mop bucket, which mop buckets aren't clean. So like I don't know. But that one's a fun one. Looking back now I laugh at it. At the time I only saw red and I was about ready to just go on a rampage. But that's
Dude, that's disgusting. I can't believe that that's honorable that you would clean that because I probably would just be like,
uh,
nope.
I I didn't. I at that point I was the manager, so I delegated. That's because
Oh, good.
that's what a
Good.
good manager does is they delegate tasks that they don't want to do to someone who also doesn't want to do it, but they have to because you're the boss. So I was just like, yeah, clean up aisle kitchen. It's on you, and wash my hands of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's a I, like I said, I could go on about like that's probably the one that takes the cake. I think there was a guy that like sparked up a blunt right in front in the bar, like right in front of me at the bar, and is trying to order a drink. And he comes up and he like looks up, and I'm like, you can't do that. Like, are we really? Do I need to have this conversation with you? And then he got mad when I kicked him out, and I'm just people, yeah, people learn how to act in public at bars and
Yeah.
restaurants.
And I don't even know. In Nebraska, you can't smoke, I think, period. But even in states where they sell it and that's all cool, I still don't think you could do that in like a regular establishment, right?
And
Like it has to be a designated establishment for that.
yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Nebraska has a no smoking, like indoor smoking policy, but I think even in like states like Colorado where weed is recreational and legalized, like I don't think that you can any sort of indoor smoking there is flies either. I think if you're outdoors you can maybe smoke like weed out in public there. I don't know. I think there's been some stuff that changes, but
Yeah, I
again,
would
the fact
imagine you can.
that that's just not like just common sense is I think what what baffles me the most with that. But
Okay. Well, okay, so I kind of want to ask you about Vanderpump Rules, and you feel free to talk about Real Housewives too. So you'll probably have to educate me on this, but I do want to let you know my background. So Alex did watch Real Housewives. I never watched that with her, but I know that Lisa Vanderpump was on one of the seasons of Real Housewives. Um, but I have seen like the first like 5 or 6 seasons of Vanderpump Rules, and before this podcast, I just looked, and there's like 10 or 11 seasons. So I'm definitely behind, but I think I know most of the major players and most of the people, and I do know that Tom and Raquel have a scandal going on right now.
Scandoval.
Yeah, and I know all I know is that Raquel and Tom have hooked up, and I guess I think that that's like supposed to be a huge deal. But like for me, like I haven't watched the show in a long time, and everybody was always hooking up with everybody. So I don't know what if there's something special about it other than like Alex was saying, Tom and Ariana have been together a long time, so maybe that's the only thing. But I did love this show though, and I want to go to Pump and Tom Tom so bad someday.
Oh
And
yeah.
I feel like Max should apply. I mean, he was joking about it, but I do think he should try to get in there.
Yeah, so let's just start from scratch. So Vanderpump, so I love like trashy reality TV, like the Real Housewives, Vanderpump Rules, and all of that fun stuff. Um, Lisa Vanderpump, who was on Beverly Hills, she got like kicked off for she didn't get along with a couple of the other like housewives. But she was popular, and so Bravo kind of gave her her own spinoff. And she's a restaurateur. She has, I don't know, a lot of restaurants. I think she has like three within just like the Beverly Hills area. She's got a couple out in Vegas, a couple elsewhere. But anyways, so it's all of the juicy drama that comes with like trashy reality TV, plus all of the juicy drama because the show Vanderpump Rules is like at her restaurant. And it's like her staff. So you get all of the juicy drama from like reality TV, plus all of the juicy drama that just happens within the restaurant industry. But a lot of the staff there are aspiring actors or models, or they're trying to get their 15 minutes doing whatever. And so they're all like, you've got the like diva-ness of just being like this, hot server, whatever, right? Male or female. But then you also add on the like extra diva-ness that you have to be like an actor or actress or, in Hollywood. And you combine all of those together, and what you get is just pure excellence. And it is incredible. But
That's why it
it's
applies to us because like we were in the restaurant industry. I mean,
Oh, all the stuff that's going on is like stuff that we've experienced, but just like on steroids. And
yeah,
it's
because there
great.
is drama between staff all the time, just stupid stuff.
But so that's kind of what got me hooked. And um so so that's kind of the premise of it. Now, starting back, it's like 10 seasons long. And it is a pretty there are so there's the 12 castmates or whoever, servers, bartenders, host, whatever, the show kind of follows and is focused around. And they've had different people come and go throughout, but within within the core cast, there are probably like six of them who have been around for forever. And a couple of those are going to be like, you have like Tom Sandoval, who everyone hates. Nobody likes Tom, and he's the worst. And if you're watching this now
Is
and
that
you
a
have
new
no
thing?
idea,
Because I was obsessed with Tom. Like, I mean, I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I love Tom Sandoval. Is that like,
you're gonna get canceled for that statement. So don't say that. He's the worst, and and it is kind of newer with some of um, the stuff that's been brought to light. So, but Tom was dating this girl named Kristen. They were toxic as fuck together, and Tom like kind of cheated on her with this girl named Ariana. They like made out at this pool in Vegas or some, allegedly. That's what TV showed. But he and Ariana they've been in like a domestic companionship for the past since then. So 10 years. Um, she doesn't believe in like marriage or want kids or anything like that, so that's why they never tied the knot in that aspect. But so that's kind of Tom and Ariana's background. Now we're going to go back again to kind of the earlier seasons where you have some of the other cast, but there's a guy, a person. His name is James Kennedy, and he's like this busboy at the restaurant, but he's an aspiring DJ. And as soon as Tom and Kristen break up after his alleged affair and all that stuff, James like swoops in, and at the time he's like 21, and Sandoval has kind of like taken him under his wing and been like the big brother to him, and picked up his tab at the bar and this and that and whatever. Well, James starts hooking up with Kristen, and there's an iconic like phrase or statement, or quote, I guess, that Tom like gets mad about. He's like, "You fucked her with my condoms," and like he's so mad. He brings it up that James used Tom's condoms to hook up with his ex girlfriend after he's been like this big brother, which is kind of to him, which is already kind of against bro code, but that's neither here nor there. But so fast forward, James and Kristen date a couple of seasons. They break up. James starts dating this new girl called Raquel, or Rachel, as her given her birth name, which was what we all call her because we hate her. But so James isn't a saint by any means. He gets drunk and he says some pretty terrible things. At times, his mouth definitely can get the best of him. But so James and Raquel are like dating together. They actually get engaged, and Sandoval actually helps pay for this engagement, as like help facilitate this giant. They call it Rachella, which is like a play on Coachella.
Coachella? Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and so but Tom spends like 15 grand, uh, gives James like 15 grand to help like facilitate this engagement, and with between James and Raquel. Well, James and Raquel end up calling off the engagement, go their own ways for just they weren't compatible at the time. This is kind of what was coming out. Well, throughout all of that time, like Tom and James are really close, and like Ariana is close because of association, and Raquel or Rachel, she gets her and Ariana become really close also. So you got this kind of these two couples that are kind of bond over whatever, right? They become very close and tied together. So that was the whole engagement stuff happened in like season 9, which was last season. I guess season 10 just finished like airing, so maybe not last season anymore. But um, and so then in season 10, this is like after James and Raquel have split. There's they're going on, and James has this new girl that he's dating. Her name is Allie, and Tom and Ariana are still doing their thing, and they're great. And secretly, Tom has been having an affair with Raquel or with Rachel, and it's like a secret affair. And while the entire like there's a lot of like the group itself can be quite like incestuous, and they've all cheated before. They're all banging each other, kind of like that aspect. The thing that kind of makes this a little bit different and more of like an FU is because it's like not only did you cheat on your partner for like 10 years, who you were going to spend the rest of your life with, and you're so happy and all this other stuff, but you're cheating on her with one of your best friend's like ex-fiancés. And this is like ex-fiancé within like 6 months. So it's not like it's been a hot minute and it's happening. It's like still the wounds are still fresh.
Yep.
But and then to add on to that, it's also your partner, like one of her best friends. And so it's like all of that, but there's throughout the show, they go through, and this broke like halfway through the season airing. And so that was like really exciting. I'm sure the ratings just skyrocketed because it was all over TikTok and everywhere. Um, but so that's why it's a little bit different, and why we hate Tom is because he's a scumbag. But
Well, okay.
we'll go back there because he's the worst, and you're wrong if you think otherwise. But there, like throughout the season, there are like clips, that they capture of like just weird things. So like there's a super cringy clip where like Ariana and Raquel are talking, and Raquel's just kind of like prying like into their sex life, like, oh, blah 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 blah. Like, do you still find him attractive? Kind of maybe in her own mind trying to justify and rationalize her actions. And but knowing all of the stuff when that like aired it's just so cringy. And it's even then, like if there wasn't any like drama and stuff going on and all the whole affair and everything, it would still be kind of cringy, but not. It just kind of like that's a weird question, but wouldn't think two thoughts of it. But knowing that she's been secretly having an affair with like her man makes it just like it's just like evil, right? Like it's just kind of like
It
an
is, yeah.
fu. So that's why we hate Tom and Rachel. But Tom has just done nothing since all the news broke. But like he's like gaslighted Ariana. He's like done just kind of just um, really shitty things. Like he has yet to like officially like apologize to her. He's like apologized to other people around him, like his friends and stuff. Like, sorry for putting you in this situation, man. Blah blah blah. But he hasn't like
Is
formally come out.
is he
Go
still
ahead.
with Ariana? Did they break up?
No, Ariana, like that was as soon as that broke, that was like split. And he was just like trying to go through and being like, we were like distant, like we were separated, like or we were falling apart, like blah blah blah, and like to feel that connection that I had with like Raquel, which is funny because all of the stuff that he's saying about he and Raquel is the exact same story that he spun when he cheated on Kristen with Ariana 10 years ago. Like almost word for word verbatim. It's
But
like,
weren't
dude, you watch,
okay.
go
I
ahead.
remember. Well, I remember when the thing happened with Kristen and Ariana, and it
Yeah.
definitely felt organic. Like Ariana worked at the other bar, and Tom had kind of worked with her, but then Ariana came over to Pump, and they started working together. And Kristen was crazy. Like that Kristen chick was kind of off the rails, and so I didn't blame Tom at all for that.
Yeah, no, no, and I don't think that's why I don't think there was like hardly any backlash with it then. I think the part that is this is now a pattern, right? And so
Yeah.
that's where it's like what else like who else
Is
have you
he
done this to?
is
What
he
else
with
is going on?
Raquel?
Um I don't who knows. It's like there's like I think they'll like say like he'll say like on like because paparazzi will get him on like TikTok or get him with like the one-liners or whatever and he'll say like no, like we're not together, we're taking a break to like find each other, but then they're still talking the entire time. Like they'll someone I saw a TikTok the other day, someone like posted someone like recorded him and he was like on the phone and he was like on speakerphone and he was holding his like it was like Raquel across it and had like the like it's like the call screen and it's like okay, but you guys aren't in communication. But it that also doesn't surprise me because everyone hates them. Like all of their friends who they've had for however long, like hate them because of what they did to Ariana and James. And Ariana's like the sweetheart, like she doesn't have like a mean bone in her body, um,
Yeah, I do
and
like her a lot.
super likable. And for him to do this like to her and the way that he did it, like her dog that she had for however long died, and she doesn't want kids or anything like that. So it's kind of like her child. Like he goes and he fucks Raquel that night. Um, her her grandma passed away, which is hard, and she's like back in Florida, or in Florida, which is where her grandma was at attending ceremony, funeral, and services and all that stuff, and he fucks Raquel during that time, like in their own bed. It's just like the disrespect that comes with it. It's not. It's like one thing, not to justify cheating ever, but it's not. It's like it's just a little bit different if it's like maybe a drunk like a one time like drunken mistake versus like an ongoing like insidious like affair that and then it's like to add on like just the disrespect with everything. That's why we hate Tom and that's why there's no redemption. And you're wrong if you say that he was justified in any of his actions and or you like him, Trevor. That's a shade thrown towards you. But
Well, yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. To nobody knows if like they're together. People assume, but like it's just they're not like out publicly like a Jennifer Aniston like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie thing like how that happened. It's not like that where they're like, oh yeah, we're done now, we're together, we're an item. It's but they don't really have anybody else because they've lost all of their friends and some of they have their family and each other.
okay,
Maybe not even
so
their family. Who knows?
is Tom Schwartz still his like best bro?
Well, that's kind of airing, like coming out to light right now. Like, so the season just wrapped a couple of weeks ago. The reunion actually just finished like 2 weeks ago, which is like where everything gets like they review the season that was there and they kind of all talk about it. And Schwartz was, kind of stuck by him, played the like ignorant card. Like I didn't know, I wasn't privy to any of it. I don't stand by his actions, but also was like, I'm gonna be there for my dude. Like he's had my back forever long. But they went into business together and opened up a bar, and like the bar is just getting like fucked and like reviews and everything and tanking because of all this social backlash from Sandoval. And so now Schwartz is basically he was on a podcast the other day and he was like, yeah, nah, he's like Tom, I don't want anything to do with Tom anymore. But then Sandoval's like, that's not what he said, but it's like very clear, like out of his mouth. It couldn't be misconstrued or anything else. So it's just funny.
Well,
And
it's
all of
called
this went
Tom
with my
Tom, right? Are
popcorn.
they like 50-50 owners or
So the bar Tom Tom is actually Lisa Vanderpump's bar. They're like she brought them in as like minor owners. I want to say they have like 5% equity each. Um,
Hmm.
that's
Were you talking about
LVPs.
a different bar?
But yeah, they opened up their own bar called Schwartz and Sandy's.
Hmm. Okay.
Tom Schwartz, and then Sandy's Tom Sandoval, and that's the one that is like they put like a lot of their money into it. Schwartz basically chose the bar over his marriage with one of the other castmates, Katie, and so they got like a divorce and are on the outs. And just Schwartz has lost a lot because of Tom's actions and selfishness, and it's just like their relationship is like a black hole. Schwartz is, the object flying towards it that can't get away, and Sandoval's a black hole that just sucks everything up, all the good out there, does
Dan,
all
you
these
do not
evil
like
things,
Tom.
just void of light. So
Have you not liked Tom Sandoval? Like when did you binge all this, or have you been watching it over the years?
over the years,
And you never really liked Tom Sandoval?
um, I didn't ever have like a hatred for him. He wasn't one of my favorite characters or people on the show. I don't like saying characters because they're actual. It's
Well,
reality
yeah,
TV and
and
they're
it's
people, but
yeah.
like. But he wasn't like one of my favorite members of the cast, but he wasn't like I didn't like hate him. He was just kind of there, which was fine. My favorite character are people on their castmates for the men because there's a couple of them, but like Jax Taylor, who is just he's almost equally as bad as Tom, but his
I
is
was
like
gonna say, in my opinion, Jax is the worst human. That I
but
mean, he's horrible.
but Jax doesn't have like that heinous like insidiousness of like doing it with like her best friend kind of a deal and like
Well,
keeping going on
okay,
and like
didn't he
the
sleep on Tom
gaslighting
Sandoval's couch, and
and fuck
and
it.
then
Yeah. And
he
fuck
hooked up with
Kristen, but
Tom's
like
girlfriend while
yeah,
he
but like
was staying
Kristen's
with them?
yeah. And like yeah, and that's fine, but no like Tom and Kristen, like you said, they were very much so like already kind of like on the outs. It wasn't like happy go lucky, like we're gonna I love
Yeah,
you so
but
much,
Tom,
we're
I
gonna spend the rest
remember
of our
Tom
lives
was
together.
not. Tom was sad about it. Like he was bummed.
Oh, he was upset, but like anybody would be upset over that. You're not gonna be like, oh, bro. But then they made up over like 3 months, and they were best friends again, or whatever.
I
So
remember too. Jax went on the reunion that season, and what's the guy's name that does all the interviews on the reunion? He's always the same guy.
Andy Cohen,
Yeah, Andy Cohen asked Jax like, "Do you feel guilty?" And Jax was like, "No, I do not care that I did this. I'm not going to apologize." Like Jax was just like,
yeah.
"Nope, sorry, like deal with
So
it."
I hope Maxwell's listening to this because Jax reminds me a lot of Max, and the just kind of how how Max will go. And there was the one night we were getting ready to go out. Maxwell, one of our friends, not Vanderpump Rules, but we were sitting in his living room, and he got changed like 45 times within like a 15-minute period because
Yeah, he
his
changed
cowboy
like
boots
so
didn't
many
match up
different.
with his cowboy hat or his shirt or his jeans or whatever.
Yep.
Fucking drama, but
That is
uh,
one of the that is like a memory burned in my brain because he just kept popping through the door to show off his jeans that with the boots.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
he's
Max. But Max could do like Max could stab me in the back, and I'd be like, like literally with the knife, like put the knife in my back, and I would be maybe mad about it, but then we'd squash it out later, where because he would maybe apologize, or it would we would make it right. Whereas and Jax does that, maybe he doesn't feel guilty. That's fine. Like he doesn't feel remorse, but also I think a lot of Jax's behavior. They also did a lot of coke on the show, or do a lot of coke. I don't know if they did or do is the correct term.
is
Um,
that did they talk about that?
Not like
I didn't know they
they
did
have
that.
like code words, so they have like code words for it. Like there's an episode or like a phrase where it's like, "It's not about the pasta. It's not about the pasta." Pasta was like their code word for like Coke because
This is all
one
over
of
my head. I didn't know any of that. I had
what
no
yeah,
idea.
there's but like they're all fucked up, and when a lot of this stuff happens or whatever, but at the end of the day Jax is just a little bit more likable and not like Sandoval is very can be very abrasive as like a person, just like in general, even prior to all this other shit. And so you don't have any reason to like him or to like. I mean, he's all right, but you're not gonna go out like you're not gonna go out everyone like I want to be that guy. I want to be friends with that guy. Whereas like Jax is like he has that just that demeanor and that charm that he can kind of you're kind of a little bit more forgiven with it, and you'll let stuff slide. And again, that happens throughout the entirety of the show. But again, I think that the difference is who it was done to, and then how it's happened afterwards. Like Tom, like denied it a whole bunch. He still denied stuff, like has denied stuff that has been like brought to light and aired out. And he's like, no, that's not true. That's not true. He hasn't taken like any sort of accountability for it. He hasn't like apologized. He's been like gaslighting and just all, whereas like Jax was just like, yeah, I did it. Like, do I feel guilty? No, but like it happened. It is what it is. What are we gonna do about it? Like, are we gonna talk about this for like 10 years? No, we're gonna move on with our life, whether I'm
Yeah.
in your life or not. Like, we're gonna move on. Whereas like Sandoval's like, no, 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 no. You guys don't know. Nobody knows what it was like. Nobody understands. Nobody gets it. And the he's like on a he's in a band and he pays like all the band isn't even his aren't even like his friends because he pays all of the like instrumentalists to like be in the band for him or with him.
God.
But like he goes out and like he's been doing like going on like he's been like touring or whatever. And he'll like the lyrics that he has like just like smug jokes or whatever, like lines in it. Like he covered Stacy's mom. There's one in there. He's like,
Hmm.
Schwartzy, can't you see Raquel is hot for me? And this is like right when everything aired, and he was like, he knew it, but he's just like, whatever. Like it's like an fu to just the world and everyone and Ariana, which, like I said, we're Team Ariana till we die. So
Okay. Well, I feel like I need to go back and watch it. This has gotten me kind of hyped up on it. I felt like the show is kind of like not as good after like the sixth season, but maybe I'll give it another chance, a shot, go back to
there's
it.
yeah, season seven was okay. Season eight wasn't very good. Season nine was kind of like nah, because they lost a couple of castmates that were some of those core um, like members of it. But then like season 10, all this other stuff happens. So like, and a lot of it is like based off of shit that happened in like season nine or whatever. So like, you kind of have to watch some of those. But yeah, just
I'm an
put it
all or
on.
nothing guy. Like I wouldn't. Somebody um, once told my wife like you need to read the Harry Potter books, but just skip the first two and start with three. And I'm just like, no, you can't possibly do that. So I
That's
would
character
never.
development. That's you need that.
Yes. Like I know that book one is not the most exciting. Like it's not as good, but you have to read it.
I was literally
Um,
having this exact, like, not the exact same with Harry Potter, but Lord of the Rings with someone yesterday, and I was like, you can just skip the first movie. I'm like, let me summarize it for you.
you
And
said
I was
that?
like,
No
yeah,
way.
I was like, you can skip the first movie. I was like, they walk for 5 hours, all right, and then this wizard becomes friends with this hobbit and this elf, and they decide that the hobbit's the best one to take the ring and destroy it because he won't get corrupted. There's the first movie. Lots of walking. This little council comes together and they decide Harry Feet, Frodo is good to go. Okay, good. Saved you 3 hours of your life. You're welcome. Then you can go on to the second one and the third one and get into all that fun stuff.
No, I can't possibly do that. um, so I guess just last thing on Vanderpump. Um, Stassi, I love Stassi and Jax in like the early seasons, and then even when they weren't going to get back together, I just thought Stassi was awesome. Like how she just
Yeah,
owned the room, and I don't know if she ever comes back. I know she's like kind of successful and has a podcast, but I felt like when she left the show, it wasn't as good. And then DJ James Kennedy, I just loved. I was obsessed with him. He's so funny. But then he gets sober, and I can't really figure out if he's on the show anymore. And I know what like sobriety changed my life for the positive. So I'm certainly not dogging on getting sober, but this is a reality TV show about drama. And when he got sober, I was like happy for his health, but it's kind of like, well, I like the crazy DJ James Kennedy. So
yeah, no, when James was drinking, it was always like playing with a loaded gun. And or like playing Russian roulette, but with five bullets in the chamber instead of just one. There's a chance nothing happens, but more often than not, there's, something is going to happen. Um, so yeah, after he and Raquel, because Raquel kind of gave him an ultimatum, which if you are going to be sober, like you have to want to be sober for yourself, like someone else can't be. And um, you and I both, like being sober, also, like I hear that, or I feel that, but like he he starts drink after he and Raquel like break up or whatever. He kind of starts drinking again because that ultimatum is no longer applicable. But he doesn't. There are a couple of times where he gets pretty, James Kennedy of old, just that wild card. But he's a little bit more.
is he at
I don't
least
want to
on
say,
the show? Because I thought Lisa kind of
yeah,
kicked him off the show even.
no, no, he's still on it, and he's like a main, a main like castmate in like this season. It's kind of a lot. He was in he was a huge focal point for a lot of it. Um,
What about Jax?
he
Did they kick him off?
Jax is yeah Jax is so Jax and Stassi are still off. I'm trying to think. Bo is gone too, who was Stassi's partner. Um,
What about Lala?
Brittany, Lala's still there. Lala is Um, and she has enough other stuff going on in her, her own life. She was married to Randall Emmett, who was like basically like a Weinstein, like casting couch operation he had going on. He's a producer in like Hollywood and stuff. So like, and all of his own like baggage has been like brought to life, and she found out like after, or like that's like how she found out. So they split. So she's going through her own battle with that. But yeah, they're still
Let me
there.
ask you about that. It sounds like you may know. Like, I always assumed that, like, there was the whole Range Rover thing, and it was like, I always just assumed that she didn't want to admit it publicly, but that she married this guy because he was going to help her get into movies. And I know that she did like that sorority movie, but she was married to him for like 5 or 6 years, and she didn't end up getting big time movies. And she would always say that
Yeah.
she actually loved him. And so I'm like, did she actually like that guy? Because she could have had anyone. So I just
Yeah,
don't get it.
they have a kid together, and but like yeah, I think there were maybe aspects of it where she might have been trying to use him for whatever, even if it was just like a sugar daddy relationship, and he was using her as a side piece or whatever. But and this all kind of comes to light later on, especially like now that things are like that they're going through. I don't know if they're like divorced or still in that process or whatever, but like now that they're like officially like separated and on the out and stuff, like she's come out and was like, I knew that like he had a wife, but I knew that he and I like they were separating or separated when like he and I kind of got involved together. And so there's like she talks a little bit about that. Um, but I like no one's gonna know her actual motives, right? When they it first initially started going on and happening. I'm sure there probably was some instances, but she said that they didn't like he had her come in and do like a audition for a role, and it wasn't like the casting couch kind of that the other victims have like it wasn't the same like same scenario or situation that have come forward. She's like that wasn't my experience. Whereas she's like so she's still who knows, but she did say that like she blew him or whatever, hooked up with him the first night that they like went out or whatever together, and then that was like she got a Range Rover the next day, right? Which
And that
maybe
was, yeah, that
that's
was kind of the joke, but I didn't know that he was like a Weinstein character and that he has had, there's been other people that have actually accused him of anything. I didn't know anything about that.
yeah, there this is all like relatively like recent. So the show airs like they film. like over the summer, and then it airs throughout like the fall and the spring. And so like all of this was coming to light summer of 2022. And then now, like when they filmed this season, it was like which was, fall of like, fall, summer of 2022. You kind of see her going through some of that stuff. She, talks about like the custody battles and stuff that she's having to go through right now and some of that. But I think now, according to like, her Instagram lives and TikToks and stuff, which she'll pop up for on my page or whatever, I think, is in like in a better place with that. And it's kind of, but yeah, no, there's multiple like allegations towards him on that. I don't know if it's like been settled in or out of court or anything like that. I haven't followed that aspect too much. Um,
Hmm.
but there is if you're more interested in kind of that side, Hulu did like a documentary on that. Um, I'm drawing a blank on the name. I didn't watch it because I just didn't care to. But um, yeah, there's a documentary kind of talking about all that. But it sounds like there was a decent like operation. It was also like scamming people like out of money and stuff, like borrowing money, and then
Jeez.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I'll have to check that out. I always just couldn't figure out their relationship because I shouldn't say she could have had anybody, but I mean she was very beautiful and kind of famous, so you would think she would be able to. I mean, he just like seemed like they were in different leagues, is the way I want to say it, I guess. And I guess he
yeah,
would have had a lot of money, but I mean, she probably was making pretty good money on her show, Vanderpump Rules, and I don't know.
yeah. But I
It's
think
so weird.
like I don't know what they make, but like his net worth was like, closer to the 20 million mark, whereas like her net worth is maybe closer to like the 1 million mark. And that's a little bit different with having like spending cash versus like tied up in like assets that you can't really like you have, but like you can't touch kind of a deal, that liquid.
True,
So,
I guess.
but
All right, so what do you want to talk about? I wrote down. We could talk about Star Wars, video games, fantasy football. At some point, I kind of do want to talk about fantasy football. I have a couple thoughts on it, but yeah, what do you think? Or
we
gambling?
can talk about let's talk about fantasy football. That's I could that consumes the other half of my life outside of Vanderpump Rules. So it's like work, Vanderpump, fantasy, rinse,
have
repeat. So
Have you already started prepping for this year?
like in what regards?
Like,
Like
have you?
I
Do
don't
you
ever
do any
stop.
prep, or do you just show up? Oh, you don't ever
No,
stop. Okay.
I don't ever like you don't start because there's no end. So
Okay.
I'm in three dynasty leagues. I
Oh, and
joined.
I just want to say, I think Maxwell, he won't really tell me how much prep he does, but he kind of makes it appear to me like he almost does no prep, yet he also knows like anything that you might bring up. But he makes fun of me for the fact that I'm already starting to research stuff. So
Well, Max is the worst. We've already discussed that. He is Jax. He's the worst, but we also love him. So, now, I don't necessarily. I would say that I probably prep, but it's not because I'm like, oh, I've got a draft, like a fantasy draft this Tuesday. I need to prep for. It's like I just am like immersed in it, so it's like I'm always prepped or prepping or whatever. Um, and part of that's because I play in some dynasty leagues, which fantasy football, like what is maybe more common for people are, you draft your team of players and kind of assemble this all-star team of um, football players, and then you get points based off of what their production is on throughout the football season, on NFL Sunday or whenever. But so Dynasty is like all of that, but it's also like year round. And so it's more of that blend between like fantasy football and like actual like NFL like football. Like you're like the GM of the team. And so like with Dynasty there's like a large excuse me, there's like a large draft that you have and you draft your team, and that's like your team. Like there's not a new draft like there's not a new draft of like vets every year. So you like
You don't do a
for
redraft
instance,
every year? I thought you just got to keep like two or three players.
no. So it's like no. So like I have my one team. We have 30 roster spots. And you start three wide receivers, two running backs, two flex, a super flex, and a quarterback. No kickers, no defenses. Kickers are stupid. If you play with kickers in fantasy football, stop. Um, and then we have like a huge bench. So like you have your players that you draft from,
What
and
about the rookies?
once they're well, just wait, get
Oh, sorry.
there. Patience. It's a
Okay.
virtue, my friend. So like you draft like your team, and then it's like a 30 round draft. So it takes a minute. And you go through, but so let's say Christian McCaffrey, who's been a stud over the past, top five pick over the past like 6 years for fantasy, roughly. Um, so if I drafted Christian McCaffrey, I think he was in the 2015 draft. So that's not right. 2017. Anyways, let's say I drafted Christian McCaffrey with my in 2017 with whatever pick. He's like on my team. Like I keep him every year. Now I can trade him for another player, do whatever else, but like he's mine indefinitely. Now rookies, because there's always new players coming in and players retiring and stuff, there is a rookie draft every year. So you do draft every year, but it's only the player pool is only rookies. So going from like a player pool of all players in like a standard like fantasy draft that could be, you know, there's player 101 who's like the first pick to, the very last pick of the draft, right? Which we'll say it's a pool of like 250 players across all the different teams. Dynasty, you're only drafting from those that pool of rookies, and it's usually only like 3 or 4 rounds. So you still got to invest in the future, like in your future picks, because if you draft a bunch in like dynasty, if you have a team of a bunch of older players, like let's say your team is last year was like Tom Brady, you had Travis Kelsey, you got like Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry. Those all may sound like superstars, but your team is going to be hot trash next year because they're all going to retire, and so you're not going to have any picks. And it kind of, most of the time, rookie drafts are reverse order of how standings are. So the worst team gets the first pick. And so there's that kind of like strategy with it. And you can trade draft picks and stuff. So my team right now is like in win now mode in one of my leagues. Like I have some older players, I have a nice blend of youth, but I just needed a little extra oomph to kind of get me into the playoffs and really be like a top contender. So I traded my rookie pick for this year, which is like the 105, and I think my 2025, so 2 years, I traded like my second round pick. So my first round pick, which ended up being Quentin Johnson, who was a wide receiver that went to Los Angeles Chargers. And then my second round pick, which we don't know which pick that'll be because it hasn't finished, like the season hasn't played out yet. So that could be low, could be high. It's just it's a second round pick. But I traded both of those picks to the guy who had Cooper Kupp because his team is had his window. He did win a championship in his window, so good for him. But his team is now kind of aging out, and so he's in like rebuild mode. So like I traded those two players for Cooper Kupp, so he got draft capital while I get this asset, this player who is still maybe not in his prime anymore, but still a top talent in the league at that position. And so, and I'm just doing that to, like I said, to kind of really put myself over, knowing that in 2025, Cooper Kupp very well may not be in the league anymore, or if he is, he may be washed and just not good. But I'm kind of going so that way I can win a championship like this year. So that's dynasty. So you're constantly always they're like the entire year you're paying attention to like different football news, what's going on. You're picking up players off of like the waiver wire because you know um, Cam Akers a couple years ago tore his Achilles like in June or July. Like went in and picked him up off. You pick up Daryl Henderson, who was his backup off of the waiver wire, and like late June, which most casual players aren't really thinking about fantasy football until maybe late July, August-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
um, so yeah, I don't ever do like any prep, but that's just because I'm kind of always
So
in that mindset.
you can pick up a player off the waiver wire any time of the year in a dynasty
Yeah,
league.
yeah. We do in the league that I'm the commissioner of, we do lock waivers for the fantasy playoffs until the Super Bowl. So like fantasy playoffs in that league start in week 11. So like no trades are locked at then. I don't know. We lock. I think maybe it's just our fantasy playoff. Whenever I don't know, but we lock the waiver wire from like we'll say like week 13 until the end of the Super Bowl. After the Super Bowl is done, then waivers are open. But we do Fab on there. So that's kind of the one I introduced you to, the free agent budget where you have like
Yeah.
X amount of fictional dollars to bid on. And then we also do continuous waivers. And so there's never a time where you can just add a player. Like they always have to go through waivers. You always have to like bid on them. Now you can bid $0. And if no one else bids, you win. But if someone else bids, $0, then it goes to then priority as like the tiebreaker.
Hmm.
But like
Okay.
that's happening Saturday through like the entire week, Sunday through Saturday. So if you have, it was really kind of tough to navigate during COVID when players would maybe get scratched like Sunday morning because you couldn't go in. You have Zeke Elliott as your running back. Zeke tests positive for COVID Sunday morning. You better have a running back on your roster that you can plug in, that you're prepared for to plug in instead of Zeke because you're not going to the waiver wire and picking up Tony Pollard at this
Because they
time
got a waiver period.
to plug him in because you have to wait 24, like after you put that claim in. And our waivers run at 3 p.m. Central
Does
time because
anyone
we've got people
complain about
across.
that? Because, like, as a
No, it's
commissioner, people constantly tell you their opinions on stuff.
honestly, I'm not even trying to throw shade here, but I've had people in the league say this is the best ran league that they've been in. And ultimately, it's just because it's a more fair approach. So it's not the person who gets the news first that just gets the player, or it's not the person who maybe had a bad week 1 and 2, and then like your team, right? So let's say that you had a really rough like 2 weeks. You lost. You're 0-2. You're top dog on waiver priority. And let's say that I am the number one team. I've gone 2-0, just killing everyone. But I did that with Christian McCaffrey, my running back. He blows out his knee in fourth quarter of week 2. I got the win, sure, but now my one of my core pieces is done for the season. Well, just because your team sucked, and maybe that didn't suck, maybe you just had like players that were like serving like a suspension for the first 4 weeks, so you didn't have a player like that, or whatever. But just because your team like sucks, you got to go in and grab Christian McCaffrey ahead of everyone else
Like his
because
backup.
you just lucked out. Yeah, and so like Fab cancels that out, and then doing the continuous rolling waivers, it's not that there's news that breaks where J.K. Dobbins blows out his knee in practice Thursday afternoon. So we all go. It's the first person who sees that notification on their phone that they go into the league and grab Gus Edwards, and they have priority over everyone else because they saw it first. So we
Okay,
just
well, let
have
me
it
ask
this
you.
way as a more fair approach.
Okay. Um, I have I have people kind of some people say it's like both opinions here, but some people feel like I need more bench spots, and I feel like in a scenario what you're talking about, if you can't just go to the waiver and swap somebody out last minute when there's some last minute thing that comes up, then you have to have kind of a deep bench because you sort of need to have enough bench spots to have like a backup running back or whatever the scenario is. But other people like Nate, he is constantly worried that I have too many roster spots and that there's nobody on the waivers that's ever worth anything. He's like he constantly tells me that, and not to throw shade at Nate, he could be right. Maybe a lot of people agree with him, but he just doesn't feel like there's anybody on the waiver. And he's like, it sucks when I have people on buys. I can't go to the waivers because there's no one. And I feel like, I don't know.
So there's not a one size fits all approach to this, and from in my experience, I think it depends on the size of the league. 10 team leagues, obviously, you don't need as many Like the
Yeah,
player pool is
I'm
the
thinking
player pool on
12.
like right. I'm just saying like the player pool on like waivers is going to be larger because there's two less teams, right? So 10 team leagues maybe don't need as big of a bench spot. 12 team leagues might need a bigger bench spot, but then that also comes into how many players you're starting on your active roster each week. So, like in your league, right? You do a quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, two flex, and a super flex.
Yep.
Maybe.
Well,
Okay?
so
So
last year I only had one flex.
one flex and one super
Yeah.
flex.
So 2 years
Okay.
ago I had just like what you said with one super flex and two flexes. But a lot of people said that they thought that was too many. So then last year I took away one of the flexes, but then I had people say that they really like it when they can start four wide receivers or four running backs and they want two flexes. And I'm not willing to give up the super flex. Like I do the super flex because I want it to be a two quarterback league. So in my mind, that's just a two quarterback. Like it says super flex, but in my mind, it's a two quarterback league. I do that because with 12 teams, I feel like you kind of want to.
Yeah.
But
So I think, and
it's
so it's kind of the same logic kind of applies with that, right? So you're filling out a larger, you have to fulfill like a larger active roster week in and week out. So in the event that let's say you have, the Kansas City Chiefs have their bye week is week 10 this year. So you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you have Travis Kelce as your tight end, and let's say you have um,
Pacheco.
Pacheco as your running back, right? Those are three players that you can't start. Now, I'm not going to drop any of them, right? I can't drop them. So if I put them on my bench, I now have and my bench only holds five. I now have to move three of those five players onto my active roster. But let's say that there is someone like Jamison Williams who is serving a 6 game suspension this year, right? I'm going to want him on my roster from week 7 through whenever, right? But so I can't drop him. So he's just kind of a dead roster spot, like a dead spot on my roster. I can't do anything with him. I drafted him to hold. I've got to plan around that. Let's say that you have some sort of injuries that happen, right? Nick Chubb is out for 5 weeks because he sprained his shoulder. So now it puts that manager in a really tough situation because of the not because and not because of lack of maybe part of it is lack of preparation, right? Maybe they shouldn't have drafted Jamison Williams and they should have drafted someone else. Maybe they shouldn't have drafted three Chiefs players with or multiple players with a week 10 bye where they now have to pull them all off, right? But that's just not it ruins the fun. If you're a Chiefs fan, of course I want to have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I'm rooting for them on Sunday anyways. I want to root for them on my fantasy team too when they're putting up,
But don't you think
winning me
that
games.
like that's only
So
like you're really screwed week 10, but you got three good players that are all out at the same time, so they're going to be available the rest of the season all at the same time. So it's kind of a positive.
right, but do you not want but that kind of leads to maybe another issue, right? Do you want someone getting a free win because the other team didn't fill out an active roster? No.
Yeah. Well, what if
So
you
the
add a
the,
second
the
IR
solution that
spot? Does that help?
that's what I was going to say. The solution I would say is you add an IR spot, and the IR spot can be anybody who is like out, who's marked as out, and so that way, if in that same scenario, Nick Chubb is on my IR, so he's not taking up a roster spot. So that gives me at least two bench spots that I can work with. So I can drop maybe we'll say like Zay Jones, wide receiver. He was kind of got hot a little bit, but he's not someone that I'm like. He's not like a bona fide like stud like player, right? He's not bad, like, but he's not going. He's not that person that you're putting in your lineup every week. So I maybe have to still make that decision to cut him, where you, Trevor, might go and pick him up, but then I can go through and I can kind of fulfill that need without having my hands tied as much. Um, Ultimately, I think just if you have I think for every two roster spots you have, you should have one bench spot. So if you have two quarterbacks, right, and you've got two running backs, there's four. You've got two wide receivers, there's six players on your team, and then you've got a kicker and a defense and two flexes, right? So we're at 8 spots. So I think like the 4 to 5 number
Tight end.
is right there. But with having the ability to for like an IR spot, right? So that way I can go through and I can swap players out. But that all goes into part of the preparation too, knowing, especially like in the COVID year, right? Knowing that Zeke may be maybe like I could have any one of my running backs who tests positive for COVID. So I need to maybe have rather than keeping stashing four wide receivers on my bench and one quarterback, I need to cut one of those wide receivers and bring in a running back in case that happens, so I'm not stuck holding the bag. Um,
What do
right,
you
that
think
kind
about?
of
Oh yeah, no, I know what you're
right.
saying. What do you think about auction versus snake drafts? I get a lot of people say they really like auction, and it'd be hard for me to change it. Um,
I have I have I very polarizing feelings on going both ways on auction drafts. Um, I think auction drafts are great if A, you have the time to do it. They just take longer because of the nature of how it flows. I think it also hurts when you play with people who maybe don't like I don't want to say don't know how to value a player, right? But like if you have a $200 budget, you should have no player that's going for 50% of your budget, right? And I know that there have been times in your league where Saquon has gone for $98. Josh Allen went for like $100. Christian McCaffrey, right? And that is just, there's, sure, that person really wanted them, but now they're either A, not bidding on other players. So then you go through, or B, it just distorts kind of the way I think I get frustrated with it because I'm like, I'm not going to spend over, you know, in a two QB league, quarterbacks are prices are hyperinflated. So, or like a super flex. So I'm personally, Josh Allen may be great. I may want Josh Allen. I cannot justify spending $75 out of a $200 budget on a quarterback
no,
because
yeah,
while quarterbacks do make it, some of those elite quarterbacks do make a difference overall. If my quarterbacks are getting me 16 to 20 points a week, and I have someone like Kirk Cousins, and then Josh Allen's getting that person, we'll say 18 to 30 points a week, like the risk and reward isn't quite. It doesn't justify or rationalize that. And so I think I get frustrated with that in the two quarterback leagues because people will go through and I don't feel like they're valuing players appropriately. And so it's frustrating. I get frustrated with that. On the other side, I totally get it. You want to have Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts as your quarterbacks, and you want to fill up the rest of your roster with Quez Watkins and whoever else. Like, by all means, that's your prerogative. And so, like, and it is fair. You don't have to worry about doing that. I just think that snake drafts are I think they're more common. Like they're the default, right? I think that makes sense. I think a way that I did actually in a dynasty league that I started or I joined this year, we did a third round reversal in it. So the first two rounds go picks 1 through 24, right? So 1 through 12, 2 through 24. At the start of the third round, the person who was picking 12 is now they have the 301, so they pick first. So so because of we'll say Justin Jefferson, who is the number one, right around the number one pick right
yeah,
now
yeah.
overall, that person gets two studs at like the 101 and the 113 or the 201 or not the 201, right? The 224. But so they have two top 24 picks, including the 101, which is in those first like three picks are weighted higher than everything else. But then the person who was picking last, who maybe got someone like Steph Diggs, who was good but not great, they now have an opportunity to kind of go back to back. So they get the 112, they get the 201, and now they have the 301. And then that just stays, and that kind of balances it out. It was I think, probably one of the more fair drafts that I had seen. Um, I picked at 6 in that draft, so it didn't really impact me too much, but because I was right
No,
in the
that's
middle.
perfect. Yeah.
But I've seen that one kind of balance the scales a little bit for that person who, for those people who are getting the really good players, the people who are getting the really bad players, really bad just in that first round, right? They're getting the worst of the players in that taken in that first round. Um, I think, like I said, I think auctions are probably the most fun. I think if where there was going to be a change made to your league that I would like to see would be the amount of quarterbacks that a team can have on their roster, because people get so stingy with their quarterbacks, and then you are guilty of this as much as anybody. You have a hyperinflated value of that quarterback. You're like, yeah, I'll trade you Daniel Jones for Christian McCaffrey. And I'm like, no. And you're like, it's quarterback, man. And I'm like, but they're not even in the same like caliber. And you're like, all right, well, we're not going to trade then. So like, I think, and that kind of helps
So
with,
your
Nate's.
solution is only allows three quarterbacks, or
So
what are you
yeah, so
saying?
like you can only have three on your roster. So like you have your starting quarterback. If you want to roster one as your bench, put him in your super flex, you can. And if you want to have another one on your bench, you can. But there was the one year Max had
He had a
um,
lot,
he
like
had
five
like
or
six of
six.
them, right? And
Yeah.
so then that not only does it's supply and demand, not only does that take away from what's available for other people like Nate, who's mad because there's no players to pick up, probably because he had a quarterback on bye and his options are Andy Dalton, who's a backup for Dak Prescott, right? Like it's not viable. Whereas this way, there's still going to be, at most a team could roster, like the league could have rostered 36 quarterbacks, which there are, the situations where maybe you take the rookie like Will Levis and you kind of let him sit and you're like, Tannehill might get benched. They might see what they have in Levis. And so you kind of are playing that out. So, because there's always like 40 quarterbacks over the course of a fantasy season who are relevant. Um,
Yeah.
so like, but then that way you're not having one team who's just hoarding all of those
Okay.
positions.
I mean, I don't see a big problem with that. I can certainly message the group and see if they
But I
want to
guarantee you
do
there are going
that.
to be people like
Their
who,
Max won't like it, but like if we put it to a vote or
yeah,
something, that
Max
would be
likes
fine.
kickers though, so his opinion is nullified because kickers are stupid. Kickers
Well,
are literally, they're so pointless because
no,
they
you're so against it.
there's no floor, there's no ceiling. The kicker's going to get you 7 to 9 points each week, right? There's no skill, and like going through them and like, oh, okay, so like the uh, Chargers are really bad against the run defense. So I'm going to start, maybe Isaiah Pacheco over Dalvin Cook, who most people would say Dalvin Cook is the better play. But because you've done your research as a fantasy analyst that you are and this expert, right? And you want that hot take and you want that potential upside, you're going to put Pacheco in over Cook. And then Pacheco goes off for 30 points and Cook goes off for, we'll even say like 18, which is not a bad week for a running back, but you've made the better play. That
Yeah.
should be rewarded. Kickers, there's no reward there. There's nothing to lose. It's like literally just putting all of your money at the roulette table on both red and black, and then
So
just being like, okay, it hit red, so I doubled up on red, but I lost that money on black. So you're literally breaking even. I just think there's no points for kickers, or no point in having kickers.
okay, I have thought about this, and I'm willing to I guess I'm willing to bring it to a vote, and I think I'm going to change my vote to no kickers. Last time it won like 7-5, like keep kickers, but I voted to keep kickers. I've always been like traditional, but I just thought about it, and I was like, you need to
I
evolve as a fantasy commissioner, and what is the point of kickers? I just kind of it kind of
exactly.
yeah,
Well,
and
and it's
so
like
it
any
was just a
player that you
tradition ththing. Like that was how it's always been, and I realized that's stupid, and it just doesn't make sense to keep it. So
it's I just for a position that you can cut and replace with no consequences is just not. I don't think it's not necessary,
I
right? So
do
like,
think that Justin Tucker
right, okay,
is
Justin Tucker will
slightly
say is
better than. I mean, he is
everyone else,
better.
right? He's going to
Yeah,
get the 8 to 11 points, whereas everyone else is getting 7 to 9. Okay, that's fine. There are games that have been decided by less than 2 points. I get it. I'm just saying that for everyone else, there isn't a there's just no consequence, both positive or negative, of having a kicker, because I go in, I put in uh, Evan McPherson, kicker for the Bengals. Evan's on bye this week. Cool. I take him out. I plug in literally anybody else, and I know no different. And
yeah,
so
it's
whereas
true.
like like, and same argument, a similar argument can be made for defenses, but you can play defenses. Like, you're not going to play defense against Patrick Mahomes, but you might play
I
defense
do think
against,
you can stream defenses, and there is
right.
a difference.
Right. No, there is, but like, you could make the same argument that there is a little bit more volatility to defenses, they're all roughly going to get you the same amount of
Kind of,
points.
but a lot of people make fun of me, but I have gone in and adjusted the defensive scoring based on all kinds of stuff. And I know
I'm one of
people
those
hate
people that
it.
make fun of you.
People hate it, but like,
When your
and
defense is outscoring your running back and your quarterback and your wide receiver and your tight end combined, that's the problem, Trev.
well, in okay, so there is a big variance in my fantasy league between the defenses. Like the top defense of the week and the 12th best defense of the week, there's a big variance. And it's because I've altered the scoring. And like you said, if you just go with your traditional scoring, it's not as big a. Like I've been in Maxwell's league now many years in a row. And um, my defense always gets me between like 4 and 9 points. You almost never get 10 because you just kind of go start at 10 and go backwards. And in my league, you start at 10 and you go backwards, but you also have the ability to score points if your defense does good things. And there's a big variance between first and 12th. And like the 49ers, Dallas, and Eagles are probably going to be good defenses this year. That if somebody wanted to spend 3 to 5, I mean, I think it's kind of stupid to spend more than $1 or $2 of your auction budget. But if you wanted to spend $5 and get San Francisco and just know they're going to be good all year, I mean, you can do that. So, what do you think about that? Like, do you just think,
I think defenses are fine. I don't hate them as much as I hate kickers. And it's not that I have anything against kickers. I just think that like I said, there's nothing gained and nothing lost from having a kicker. Even
I'm
and like
starting to come
even
around on this?
and
Yeah.
even with Justin Tucker, right, who is the clear number one kicker of all the kickers, right? Um, maybe ever. But the he had one, I think there was one game he put up like 24 points in fantasy. Outlier. Take that out, the rest of his games fall in line within that standard deviation of the rest of the kickers. Maybe he's on the upside of that, he's in that top percentile. But not it's if I need to cut a player to pick up Tony Pollard because Zeke is injured, I guarantee you Tucker is the first one that I'm cutting. I cut a kicker every week anyways, and then I just bid it and I pick up whichever players because you never know who's going to get injured, and then I just pick up a kicker the day before, like game day.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. I'm actually definitely changing my mind on this. So I'll redo the vote. But I mean, not everybody jumps in the group text. Some people just totally ignore it. But the people that are jumping in, you can see they're all like, yeah, keep the kickers, keep kicker.
Part of that I think is just because people want to spite me. Like
Yeah.
Nate, I have no doubt that if I was like, let's keep kickers, like let's do three kickers, Nate would be like, no, let's do five, and I'm like I have no doubt in my mind that
Yeah.
that would come up.
Okay.
Um,
Well, as
so
we get closer, people take it more seriously. But okay, I wanna kind of make this argument for why I've set up my league this way and see what you have to say about it. Because I just think people always trash my league, and I just think it's not justified.
before you even say anything, I will say part of the reason why is because it's nothing to do with your league. It's just that we're trashing you, and that's what bros do is we just trash each other. But
Okay.
I'll shut up.
Okay.
Continue.
Well, I want to make the argument that it is one of the most challenging leagues as far as like I don't think it's challenging for you or for Maxwell. Um, but I think that it is a like more difficult than average fantasy league, and the reason is because number one, it's auction, so you get to totally choose how you design your team. Next, it's a two quarterback league. Basically what I've tried to do is make there's four positions if you don't count kickers and defense, and so I've tried to make it so that all four of those positions are somewhat equal valued because in a traditional league that isn't auction, that isn't super flex or two quarterbacks, it's like the running back position is the most valuable, arguably, because of the cliff, and then wide receivers. And then it's like there's only 4 to 6 tight ends that are viable. And then people will take, yes, the top three quarterbacks like Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. People will probably take them a little bit early. And then maybe like Lamar Jackson and maybe Justin Fields this year will kind of go in like 4 through 6 or 7. But for the most part, in a single quarterback league, you can just like wait till round 9 or 10 and take a fairly decent middle quarterback and still have a fairly good year. And you just load up on running backs and wide receivers. You take like one tight end, one quarterback, and you're good. But I feel like in my league, and this year I'm going to do PPR, like full PPR. And so I feel like running backs just, they have their value because there's only like so many running backs that are bell cows. There's only 32 teams. There's probably 60 running backs, and there's like a pretty good cliff. But wide receivers this year are going to have heightened value because it's a full PPR league. Quarterbacks, it's way more valuable in a super flex league because they score the most points, and now you can have two of them. And then tight end, it's there's not much I can do. Making it full PPR is going to help. There's like six of them, but like the top three tight ends do, like they can command some of your auction money. But I feel like because I've tried to make it even and it's auction, so you can totally like you can go into the draft, you can prep for it and be like my brother one year, he told me he's like, I'm taking the top two running backs. I'm just going to spend 75 and 75 and I'm going to have one and two. And I think he got Christian McCaffrey and Kamara, and that was the year that Kamara, like they finished like 1 and 2, and um, so you could just go in and be like, I'm going heavy running back, or you could be like, I'm going RB0. You could do, I'm gonna get the top, I'm gonna do quarterbacks and tight ends. Like you can totally do whatever you want in my league, and the strategy's just all over the place because there's more than one way to win, and you can go in with that mindset. And I don't know of any other league that's like that. And so I feel like you kind of have, if you go in and you're totally a novice and you don't know anything, um, I mean, I've had a lot of those people win, but at the same time, like usually they don't know what they're doing, and they're not going to probably come out of the draft as well. And I just feel like there's the like Maxwell's even said, all joking aside, I think you have a very like thought provoking league because you just have to really think about how you're going to structure everything.
So let's kind of unpack that and start back. So you want to make it so that it's the positions are more equal across, right? So that was one reason for doing like, super flex and some of the, full PPR for receivers and some of that. But all that really does is just want for 2 QB or a super flex, it just inflates the price of quarterbacks. Derek Carr should not be drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson. 2 quarterback leagues, Derek Carr is drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson because the quarterback is guaranteed those 15 points with upside of hitting, 30. And the absolute top players of that tier, they get that same inflation rate. So it doesn't balance it out in that aspect. So let's just say, and we'll just do this in a snake draft because it makes more sense with like speaking like rounds. So the first 2 rounds are all quarterbacks. Okay. Now get the exact same situation that you were just in round 3 with the rest of your players, your running backs, your receivers, your tight ends. So I don't think it really balances it out that much. Now, where the discrepancies with quarterbacks oftentimes are the ones who have rushing upside or a rushing floor. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. Justin Fields' numbers, absolutely atrocious, right? If you look at it just like his passing stuff, he's like quarterback 100. Like it's like terrible. But because he can bust out a 75-yard touchdown run, he has tremendous value and tremendous upside for that. So that still to balance that out, right? So that way you do have maybe a little bit more thought in how you approach your players and your roster configuration, right? Um, the way that I've seen this, and this still players will still take advantage of this, right? There will still be the outlier, like Josh Allen would still reap the benefits out of this because he can pass the ball excellent and he can run the ball excellent, right? But you do, rather than a 4 point touchdown passing league, you do 6 point passing. And what that does is it elevates those other more traditional quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, who I think if you ask anybody would say he's definitely a top five quarterback in the league, maybe top three, right? But he doesn't run. So in fantasy, he's like, or I think I said running back, but quarterback, right? But like in fantasy, he's valued in the he's a he's a top like he's the great number one quarterback for your team, but he's not in the top half because Lamar Jackson is going to beat him out. Justin Fields is going to beat him out. Those quarterbacks that can run. So what this does is it kind of mitigates their running potential and increases. He's going to pass for 75 touchdowns, and they're going to run for they're going to pass for 30, and they're going to run for 20. But because it's only a 25 touchdown split, but because he has 5,000 yards and 75 touchdowns, and Lamar Jackson has 2,000 yards passing and 30 touchdowns, it's going to balance it out a little bit. Now, I think that is how you balance that. I don't know, and I think two quarterback or super flex is basically two quarterback. Like you have the option to put in another skill position, but you're not going to unless your hand is forced. Like there's really no reason to, just because
Yeah, because the
the
floor is
quarterbacks
so
do
good.
outscore. Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's an argument to be made the quarterback's most valuable position in probably all of sports. So maybe they should be treated more on that top level rather than being able to pick up Kirk Cousins or swap Cousins out for Derek Carr and get the same value or equity out of them. So I think that's
but
just that. I think that is
well,
how it is, right? But as far as like PPR, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Like it does for some players, like Derrick Henry, who catches 20 balls a year, versus Alvin Kamara, who catches. I think there were like 5 years in a row he got like 81 passes, right? That's a 60 point difference between those two players. But and so that going into it with the full PPR. But it's like as far as like separating out receivers versus running backs, I don't think it's really that big of a change. Like, sure, but the amount of receptions that players going to need to see on a per game basis to really have that value not only be seen but to be like felt is going to be asinine compared to whatever the other ones are. And if the player is receiving that many, i.e., Cooper Kupp, who was getting targeted like 100 times a game when he was playing with Stafford, because Stafford literally looked towards him and no one else, like Cooper Kupp was putting up 30 points a week and he'd have 100 yards and he'd have 15 receptions. So he's putting up 25 points there and a touchdown, right? That's full PPR. You do the same thing with a player who has, we'll say, 2 receptions and 3 touchdowns, right? And we'll say 25 yards, right? Short little, or 2 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 25 yards, right? Just they're down in the end zone. They are the red zone target to do that. They're going to put up maybe the same amount of points or less than Cooper Kupp. But if you're looking at who was more impactful to the game, to that team in the win, it's Cooper Kupp by far, right? He was the playmaker. He was the one that they looked to. He got him through, put the team on his back. He carried them. Cooper Kupp should be rewarded for that, in my opinion. I don't think it should be equal because the players themselves aren't equal in their skills, and I think you're trying to put a box. What is it? The saying? You're trying to put a square in square in a triangle or whatever, right? Like I don't think you can do that. I don't think it works. I think what that's not what I enjoy out of fantasy is having equality across the board.
okay. Um, I guess I do want to like challenge what you said a little bit about like if we were in a snake draft, the first 2 rounds would just be everybody taking 2 quarterbacks because
I mean, I've done it on best ball, not to cut you off, but I've done it on like best ball drafts, which best ball is just you draft your team. There's no season management, so you
yeah,
draft like a team of 18 players. They
yeah.
plug in your highest scoring, and
But
in
that's totally
Superflex,
different because with
kind of.
redrafts you have to be you have to manage that yourself, so you're always going
Yeah,
to have
kind
to.
of, but you're still, in a sense, it is different. I'm not saying it's not, but it is very similar in the aspect that you're drafting your team for your roster. You are going to draft not two players at the same bye weeks, right? Because you need to start a quarterback. And if you can't start two quarterbacks, you can. You got to start two wide receivers or three wide receivers. You got to start two running backs. You got to start a flex, whatever, right? So the overall roster construction is roughly the same. But rather than maybe punting and skipping quarterback and only drafting one, and then going to drop that quarterback in the season and pick up another quarterback, or drop um, your fifth wide receiver and pick up a quarterback for that bye week, you're planning ahead for that. But overall, like the logic is still kind of the same. It's just the timing of it is different. And so in and in super flex leagues on some of the best ball stuff or like two quarterbacks, like you'll see the first round, it'll almost consistently be all quarterbacks. And then the second round comes back and it snakes, and you might see Justin Jefferson and Christian McCaffrey and Jamar Chase. And those top elite talents, you might see them sprinkled in the second round. And then you'll see the third round, which will have the remainder of the quarterbacks. So your bottom of the barrel, your Zach Wilsons of the world. And that's where you start to see those other running backs and wide receivers go in that
Yeah.
normal like
I
tier
guess I
break.
haven't done a lot of snake super flex or two quarterback leagues, but I feel like in my league, since it's auction, I we've been doing auction and super flex or two quarterbacks. We've been doing it like this for, I mean, I don't know, like 8 years in a row, and I feel like Patrick Mahomes, Jefferson, yeah, they're like people pay a little bit more for them, but plenty of people are like Max. I think he almost always just gets like Derek Carr and some other guy, and he doesn't pay more than like $10 for those guys. So you still have the option if you're like, wow, people are being an idiot and they're spending too much money on Josh Allen. You can still say, I'm not going to do that, and I'm glad they're wasting all their money, and I'm going to take advantage and get running backs with this money. You know?
And yeah, and I don't disagree on that. I don't, I think auction that plays into auction, but I just don't think that if your ultimate goal is equality across all positions, I don't think a super flex to quarterback league is the way to do it.
I think my
And
goal is to make it so that you have $200 and you have to build the best team, and I
so
don't want any
your goal
position
is
to
to
be
give
just
options on how you approach it, different strategy.
right. I want everybody to have so many options that there's no, like, if I didn't do it and I just left it the traditional way, almost everybody that's smart would choose like hero RB, or they would take like two running backs in the first 5 rounds because those are the typically historically the most successful ways to build a team. And I'm like, well, I don't want people to just be able to do that. I want it to be like you can do
Yeah,
all kinds of
no, and
crazy stuff.
I think uh, I think it does. The way that your league is set up is different than other leagues, and sometimes I hate that because I have to approach it completely different, which can be a
You
lot.
can't you
It's
can't really do
it's
mock drafts for my league, so that's
it's
frustrating.
and even if you do, it's not accurate because you have Nate spending $150 on Saquon Barkley. So like I think like I think and like I said, that's fine. I get frustrated with the auction aspect, and this kind of ties back to what I said earlier about people, other managers overvaluing players for where they are, and then also other people just being like, "I'm gonna take every quarterback and I'm gonna trade them," and it's like, no, because you're gonna try to trade me Derek Carr for Christian McCaffrey, and I'm like, that's bad value. I lose on that deal. The value that I gain from having Derek Carr is
Do you get
far
annoyed with the trade
less.
request? Can't you just deny it and say no thanks? Like,
Um, yeah, but I think I also get annoyed with maybe the I think it helps if there is I think I get annoyed with the lack of communication with it. Like you said earlier, like the group chat, there's 12 of us in there, six people respond like consistently,
yep,
and the other
that
six you will
frustrates me
never
too.
hear from. And so it's really hard, even if it is like, because obviously I'm not going to send you my best trade offer if I'm trying to get a player. So I can get a steal, I'm going to get that steal. I want that bargain. But if I can go through and send out like If I can start the conversation there and you're like kind of close, like, yeah, you know what? I'm interested in Christian. I'll move Derek Carr, but I'm not going to move him for Zay Jones. Where would you go? Where would you meet? What's the middle ground? Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, right? Okay, yeah, maybe we're talking. Okay, maybe I throw in. Maybe I'll give you Christian McCaffrey, and you give me Derek Carr and Hollywood Brown, right? Or we can go through and we can find. You can get the top elite talent at that position. I get a bottom half talent at that position, but because it's super flex, it's hyper inflated. And then I also get a good talent, not elite, not great, but a good talent in Hollywood Brown. So then I can kind of eat. I can eat that cost a little bit more. It makes it more digestible. But
Yeah.
without there being a platform, like a way to have that conversation with another manager,
Well,
it
you
it just
suggested we switch to sleeper,
yeah,
and
and sleeper is better than everything. And it'll make it more competitive because you'll get like updates on player statuses too. So like, I don't know if you saw this earlier, but I think ESPN had a notification that Tyreek Hill was being investigated for like a assault and battery or something like that.
no, I didn't know
ES,
that.
it's okay because ESPN didn't put anything out afterwards. Sleeper then had breaking news 6 hours later that was like, investigation's over, please. There are no charges. Like, it was done, right? But ESPN lets you know that he was being investigated. Sleeper let you knew not only about the investigation when before ESPN launched it by about like 20 minutes, but it also told you like, hey, this is resolved. So like, if I'm trying to trade Tyreek Hill, you're good to go. So it's just you get the notifications. It makes it more competitive in that aspect, which then also puts it on an even playing field for the people. And that's kind of goes into what I said with the continuous waivers. You're on an airplane traveling for work and you don't have Wi-Fi. You're in airplane mode, and then some news breaks. Well, me doing nothing with my life, sitting at home on my phone playing Candy Crush, get the notification like I'm gonna go pick up this player. Cool. Like I shouldn't just because I have the accessibility and you don't. I don't. I don't. It all ties together. I think it
I
makes it
like
more.
that. No, I like that.
So, um, But yeah, your league it's fine. I think we give you shit just to give you shit. Ultimately, it does. I don't play in it because I like you because that's the furthest thing from the truth. But it does kind of keep me open minded and on my toes, which in hand also pairs well with preparing, even though I don't ever truly prepare, but like just being aware of like trends and what's going on and how other people are valuing X player. So that way I know if I'm looking at let's say like a non-snake draft, I'm doing it like a snake draft. I can see that, okay, Josh Allen might fall to me here through what ESPN or Yahoo's or insert sites rankings say, like he should, like he's my projected pick. But because I know that other players are valuing Josh Allen higher than X platform because the platforms are always off
Yeah.
on like on where actual people value them. Then I know that maybe I actually need to reach and I need to take Josh Allen here. Or if I know that I value him really high, but he's not going to project to go for another 4 rounds, I can probably let him slide and you know, get him on my next pick or two.
Yeah. And your
But
casual fantasy player just doesn't think about that kind of stuff. Um,
no,
do will our league data transfer over to Sleeper? Can I like load that up?
I think I think you can have everything imported in there.
Yeah, because that's the
I,
only
I
thing is it sucks to lose all that history.
like just like previous champions and stuff.
Yeah, even Maxwell was like he was saying how I mean we've played in Yahoo like 8 or 9 years in a row, and it records like your win loss record, your like what your rank is, and it's kind of like meaningless data, but it's fun to look at.
I don't know if all of that will carry over. Like 10 years of Trevor playing fantasy, it'll show like 1 and 12 and then 2 and 9 and 3 and 8 and I
Like
don't
it
think it'll
tells
show
me what
all.
my record is against you, even like which is kind
Yeah,
of
I
cool.
don't know. I don't know that all of that data will transfer over, but I think it'll import in like previous champions like the year. You if you are doing like a keeper league and stuff, you can import rosters so you don't have to go through and like reassign stuff and do it. Um, but I don't know for certain. Um,
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I'm
Uh,
gonna look at doing that either way. So we have like 10 minutes left. Did you want to just call it, or is there anything else you want to talk about?
okay, just go. I'm just chilling. I'm just going with the flow, just vibing.
Okay, well, what do you think? Have you paid attention to this Titanic sub thing? You have any thoughts on
Only
that?
the memes that I've seen on the internet.
Okay.
Um,
Do you do
which,
TikTok?
yeah, I
Okay.
don't post because
Well, yeah,
I'm
but I mean,
cool.
you've seen the
I'm
you've
cool, but yeah, my For You page is all sorts of different stuff. No, I I know I know enough about it to know nothing about it, but know if that makes I don't know if that makes any
yeah.
sense. Um, what I've actually been really interested in on the front, kind of following quite closely, are um, aside from politics because politics suck, but they're good to be aware of. But is AI and like the artificial intelligence and all of that stuff that's been developing, and how it's going to, I think, rapidly change the way that we as humans interact with our everyday like world and in our everyday lives. Um,
I don't
that's
know anything
been
about this.
dude, it's been super fascinating. So like the most common one or most well known that's recently that launched about well, I don't know last fall is Chat GTP, and it's like a language. It's an LLM. It's like a language learner model, I think is what it stands for. Anyways, what it does is it's studied just a shit ton of information from everywhere, and you can ask it questions, and it can like provide information for you. Now, this sounds like Google. Great, cool. We have Google. Why do we need this? So this can also go through and like it's fluent in every language, including like coding. So like I um, was looking to mod some stuff for my PC for like games and stuff, and I needed to download some JavaScript stuff and to put in some program. And this is all of I have no way out of my wheelhouse. I'm like, Chat GTP, can you write me this thing? Can you write me this code? And blah 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 blah. And I was like, boom, done. Cool. That's really cool. Awesome. You're not a gamer. You don't do any mods. Do you use like spreadsheets ever? Google Sheets, Excel, any of that? Maybe, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Office
do.
people? Cool. How do you you need to go and take these two data sets and you need to organize them and run the average number of increase attendance over as a teacher, right? You need to see the average attendance for all of your students based off of their letter grades and um, over the days that they were attended by month by each week, right? Some weird thing like that. Excel can do it. Does anybody know how to write that code? Probably one person. Chat GTP, well, this is what I'm looking to do. And it's like, boom, here's the formula, paste it into your bar. It grabs like cell A and puts it in cell B and blah blah blah, and it does it all for you. And so like there's stuff that I've seen on like TikTok or other platforms where people are like doing this for like stock market trading. So like there's bringing politics into this, but not getting political. Politicians always have like the best. Their trades are always spot on, and there's no insider trading going on, but they're always on point. Well, you can just like someone made had the AI create like a bot for them. They gave it like 50 grand to work with. Obviously, they're in a much better place than I am to have 50 grand disposable income to just be like, let's see what happens. But they went through and they had this like bot to like and basically just follow Nancy Pelosi and some other people's kind of trades and do that. And they're up like 400 grand because they've just been following like what these people are doing. There's other things that you can do like automation as far as like jobs and stuff. Like um, someone was like, I need you to create an apartment listing for me and then post and then advertise this apartment listing out there for whatever, right?
It
So
can
something
actually
what your
post it.
yeah, something that like your apartment complex manager would do. Like, I have a budget of $250. Get this done. And it's like gone through and it's like, we've got a spacious 4 bedroom studio apartment. That's a kind of counterintuitive, but like spacious 4 bedroom apartment, 1,600 square feet in Northwest Lincoln, Nebraska. Pets are allowed, blah, 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 blah. Here's this tour. And then it's like, all right. And it's like, we've posted this on Zillow and whatever else. hey, here's my resume. I need you to help me get this, and so that way I can apply for my job. Here's all your skills. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. All right, we posted this on Glassdoor, Indeed, all of that stuff, and it like you can do work. It can do all the work that like we can do, right? But it's just at a 10 times the speed. So like I could I could create that Excel formula. It would take me probably 4 hours to figure out how to source everything correctly and get it working. Cool. So 4 hours done in 10 minutes. The apartment listing, I could probably figure out how to do that. I have no idea, but I could probably do enough research and figure it out. Cool. That's already done by the time I get done reading my first article on Google. Okay. Um, Resume. People pay other people to be resume writers for them and to format and to help them do that. Cool. Now I don't have to spend money on doing that. Two, it's already done. And three, it's already been posted everywhere. And I've got job offers coming in or recruiters calling me for like a job. So it's taking all of that stuff and it's just basically it can do all of that. But when you throw in the fact that it's like fluent in Spanish, I think this is going to be, I think we're probably not, like, I don't think this is coming like 2024, but I think within the next, I think it's going to be very similar to like the internet boom. Like, you know how like the internet happened and it was there for a while and it was kind of a slow curve and then it was like boom internet 97 Bill Clinton or when I think Bill Clinton was president and yeah whenever that happened, right? And it was just like this huge spike in the amount of data that was available to people, the resources, all of that stuff. I think we're about to see another, I think AI is going to be another huge spike very similar to that. um, but you know, with everything, there were pros and cons. Internet brought lots of great resources, also opened up the door to lots of bad things, right? And
Yep.
I think, and you're seeing, and they're already, we are already seeing that in aspects like it. ChatGTP, when it initially launched, was only for data prior to 2021. It wasn't connected to the internet. There is now, as they're, you know, they're developing it because they're kind of doing like beta testing with it, just because and how do you beta test it? Open it up and just be like, hey, it is what it is. Don't use this for anything like factual. Don't take this as a source of truth. But now, and they're like new iterations, it's open to the internet and with and it's sourcing like things like Twitter. And so when Elon Musk says that, you know, we're going to Mars and then you know, aliens are real, and then some will say Joe Biden says that aliens are not real, Elon Musk is full of shit, it's taking both of that information, then it'll formulate its own responses because it is like conscious in its own sense, right? And so it does that. There's also been lots of like potential like students using this in school to because you can be like, hey, I need you to can you write me a paper over can you write me a 5 page paper over Moby Dick and how it impacted climate change? I don't know if any of that's even true, but it'll write you out a 5 page paper that you turn into your professor and it doesn't it passes all the plagiarism sites that they test to see if you stole shit from. It can do a lot of again, lots of pros, lots of cons. I think the bigger thing with it, a lot like the internet, is not necessarily worrying about all of the cons and being proactive in it, but just being aware that they are there and it's more of a tool, right? Like a hammer can be used as a weapon. However, a hammer is one of the best like one of the best tools that we humans
Yeah,
have
for
used throughout
sure.
history. It can also do a lot of damage, but like you know, I think it's the same thing. There's already been stuff I've heard like politically about, especially with like the next election coming up, with it being, you know, you're going to see lots of like really good deep fakes. You know, um, Donald Trump saying that everyone is stupid, he's the best, and you know, all of this really terrible stuff, right? And just it's complete bullshit. Um, you know, he never none of the stuff that is on the news ad or the video that you're seeing on Facebook or Twitter is actually anything real. It was all generated by AI, but you, it's done so well it's hard to tell, and it's you know it's just a new frontier of being aware of what you see and like how to digest it and I hate saying like gotta do your own research because that's stupid. But like but it is true, right? Like you can't just take anything at face value anymore. You've got to kind of look at it with a grain of salt because it doesn't know right from wrong. It just does. But I think that's really
Okay.
cool.
Well, shit, I think I'm almost out of time, man. Um, Yeah, we have like 40 seconds. I feel
Robots are
like
taking
we,
over the world.
yeah, we'll have to do another episode sometime or something. Like I let the AI thing, I don't know anything about, and it's really fun to talk about. It's scary, but yeah. All right, man.
We're living in the Matrix. It's gonna happen.
All right. Thanks for joining me, man. See ya.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.